Okay, welcome everyone to the monthly meeting. This meeting is audio recorded, and those in attendance should refrain from making any defamatory statements. And there are no other recordings of this meeting without prior authorisation of this committee. I am the chair, aren't I? Defamatory. Yes, okay. Apologies.
I had an apology, Mr. Mayor, from Councillor Campbell last night.
Councillor Campbell and Councillor Watts.
No, yeah, I've heard Councillor Watts maybe. Yeah.
The mover. Move Councillor Burns. Second Councillor Fisher. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Adoption of the minutes. The Corporate Services Committee held on the 19th of March. Someone like to move those minutes? That was in attendance. Moved Councillor Fisher. Second Councillor Burns. All in favour? Against? Carried. Declaration of interest. Nil. Okay, straight on to the business items. Financial summary and investment report. Mr. Phelps.
Thank you, Chair. So we'll quickly go through the results to the end of March, being the end of the quarter. So effectively what we have is a positive variance to budget overall. This is on page 2 of 1.82 million compared to 1.63 million variance in February. Overall, we've the main reason for the positive variance is in relation to the capital works budget, which we'll walk through the main variations over the different categories of revenue and expenditure. So operating revenue at the year to date to the end of March is about $1 million behind, which is about 2% of our budget year to date. The main areas that are driving this lower revenue base has been children's services revenues lower by about 146,000, which is mainly the utilisation of the facility at ELC and family daycare at this point in time. And it's mainly just a bit of a hangover from the COVID-19 pandemic. Plus also we've got an ECT that's a vacancy as an ECT in the ELC, which limits our numbers that we can have in the facility. So hopefully we're in the process of trying to recruit that position, which should bring that back up to parity.
That's quite a frequent situation. Is there any way we can get ahead of that? Or is this just not available?
Refer to the Director of Enviro.
Yeah, it's a difficult situation. Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. So it is a difficult situation. It's always hard to try and recruit qualified early childhood teachers up this way, but we actually have conducted interviews recently, and we're about to appoint a new ECT. Yeah. But yeah, it's just one of those things.
So overall, we'll be going through looking at the full year result in regards to the actual operations of the children's services anyway, come in this month we're in now. Sale yards revenue is down by just over $250,000 at this point in time, and that's probably just a bit of a lower than expected throughput coming through for livestock, partly due to the restocking of a lot of the farmers and the drought conditions that we've been in the previous 5 years. So hopefully that will start turning around. We've been getting better numbers coming through the yards at this point in time. We've got a few extra sales on tap too, which is good for our numbers. So we'll be doing a full year review of that coming through. General purpose revenue is down by about 100K, and it's mainly due to two areas, which is mainly our investment interest, which is due to lower rates than what we anticipated, plus also the interest in regards to overdue rates. There was a moratorium put into place by the Office of Local Government where we had 0% on overdue rates for the first 6 months of the 21 financial year. So it's lower by 100K in total. The state roads, it's lower by about 190,000. We've got claims going through for the March quarter for both the individual price works orders, which is the works that the RMS give us out on the road there, or the Transport from New South Wales give us, plus also our routine maintenance quarterly amount too. So hopefully that'll come through in April.
So through the chair, that end of year would
End of year,
catch up.
yeah, end of year we should be catching up in regards to those numbers. Bridge revenue, it's higher by about 89k, and that's mainly just with Avondale Brook Bridge being a little bit ahead of budget from a funding point of view, which is good. Water usage revenues being down by about nearly $250,000, so it's mainly due to the weather conditions. So we've got wet season, so it's been a little bit lower than we anticipated. Non-operating revenue expenses, it's down by about 420,000. Two drivers of this is mainly our internal fleet hire and also the quarry revenues. Internal fleet hire hopefully will catch up as capital works programs kick into play. So if our capital works is behind, it has an effect on the internal fleet charges. And our quarry revenue is similar, but we have had issues with Kewen, with just compliance type issues, which are being resolved at this point in time. And we're actually in the process of crushing some material out there to be used on Bunnan Road at this point. So that should hopefully catch up pretty quick towards the end of the year. Overall, in regards to the operating expenditure, we're pretty well nearly spot on mark overall, but there's a couple of movers inside of that very close number there. It's the fleet operating costs are lower by 168. Obviously, internal fleet hires are down, so we've got costs down as well. Had a bit less in our repair requirements, which is a bonus overall. Waste landfill charges costs are a bit higher by about 150k. Just with increased volumes going through Scone and Aberdeen, so that has an effect on obviously the stuff going into the facilities and also the levies. So our levies are a little bit higher. We took up a vote last month for good revenue streams, so it's actually turning around, which is quite good to know. Aerodrome operational costs are higher by 112 grand. So we're just going through reviewing those costs at the moment, but they seem to have jumped quite substantially, and there's a major overspend at this point in time. I know with a lot of the airport reporting officer role and things like that, there's been extra costs in regards to contracted AROs and so forth.
Yeah, we had to contract an ARO from Newcastle Airport for a period of time, just to ensure coverage during the extended hours due to construction.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just a function of the construction program.
Yep. Sporting grounds and venues, it's higher than budget by about 134k, and it's mainly in regards to the operating expenses at White Park and just some general sporting ground. We're actually reviewing the actual operations of the White Park complex at this point in time, obviously with the new Depop coming, and looking at the fee structures and so forth coming into the mix. Correct. Yes. In the 2022 year, we have the White Park as a separate entity. In regards to bridge maintenance, it's lower than budget by 102k. So obviously with all our bridges at the moment that we've got grant funding for, which is 14 bridges, 15 if you count the causeway at Lapstone. So it's lower because we're not doing the maintenance on those at the moment, and we're putting that money into the capital works as our contributions.
What's the golf club component of that overspending?
In regards to golf clubs outside of that sporting grounds? Yep. And we'll see that as we come through the more detailed versions coming into the mix. RMS state roads costs are higher by nearly $250,000. This is where we'll catch up with a lot of our revenue side of things. So that's the cost that we've had to expend over the last last quarter. And it's higher than budget, so we should see more revenues coming through to cover off that overexpend there. Water supply operational costs for Murrundi and Scone a little bit higher. We just need to probably go through and review some of those costs just to make sure there's no renewals in there that we can capitalise into the end of the year. So the big reason why we're in positive variance is mainly the capital works budget, which is $3.2 million underspent at this point in time. The main areas for that are effectively the sporting grounds capital work. So we've got a lot of projects that are coming through to fruition now, and they're finalising coming up to the end of the financial year, which is where a lot of these grant funded bodies have got the timelines. So we've got a number of projects in regards to the Stronger Country Communities, number 2, and also the drought stimulus funding. So that'll catch up pretty quick towards the back end of this quarter that we're in now. So the June quarter, there'll be a lot more costs coming through. Airport development costs are lower by $650,000, mainly due to timing of when we get the invoices. We haven't received our March claim as yet from Darracon, so that will catch up rather quick. Armidale Brook Bridge actually is one that is lower than budget at this point in time, and we've nearly finished the actual project work, so it could come under budget by the end of the project itself. So we might have to look at that and see whether or not we might need to send some money back to the funding body overall, but it's a project that we've brought in lower than budget at this point. We're doing a lot of repair, maintenance work on our approaches at this point in time. So we're actually using funds to do that from the project because of the wet weather and the finalisation of the actual project itself. The reseal program for the regional, local and the village initial seals is lower by nearly $750,000. So we need to really address that coming into this next season. That's nearly over past the time that we can do reseals now because it's coming into the colder weather. So obviously that's something that we'll need to sit back and have a really good look at in next year's budget to make sure that those are actually spent. Some of those funds will be rediverted back out into design works for capital works projects down the track though. So it won't be that we won't be utilising some funds there, but we're going to try and fast track to be shovel ready for any grant funding that may become available into the future. Yes, it is. Yeah. I'm not sugarcoating it. Yeah, so we'll definitely have to look at that with high priority next year to make sure that that does get spent, because we don't want to get behind in our reseal program because that's very difficult to catch back up. And the sewer and water.
That money that would pay for repairing that bit of road at the top of Clifton's Road, for example, wouldn't it? That's enough money for that.
Yes.
And that badly needs doing. It's badly needed doing for at least 3 years, maybe 4.
Yep. So those funds can be reallocated to other areas within the roads network, though. That's still a given. And they haven't been just put on the bottom line. We've parked them away into an RA, as you'll see when we come through the detailed areas. The sewer and water funds, they're both behind by about 1.2 million roughly in total. And it's just mainly delay in commencement and the progress of a number of our medium to small jobs that are coming through. We've got a number of tenders at the moment that are being prepared in regards to our relining program and renewal programs. So a lot of that money will have to just go back into an RA and come back out next year for those works to be completed. Moving on to page 6. Here we've just got the budget summary as it stands at the moment. Net variations at the moment coming through to the end of March for this month. So it's sitting at just a negative only $5,000 at this point. But as I've put in the commentary there, we're going through and doing a review of all the budgets. So overall, the revised budget remains relatively balanced. However, there's considerable pressure still on a number of our business entities in the actual operations, and those relate to not just the business entities being the golf course, the sporting grounds, the airport and all those items, and sale yards as well, but also our commercial rental and investment revenues and rectification works that we've had to do for some of our capital works project. So overall, there'll be a full year assessment of those, and just to give us a good washout of where we're going to sit in next month's finance papers. So now we've done 3 quarters, we should know exactly where we're going to fall out on the other side. And also we're going to have to have a good critical review of the actual capital works program as well. So as you'll see when we're coming through, it's well behind, as you've seen in the summary pages there. Moving into the non-financial information side of things, currently council's off track by about 27%, which is about 37 indicators out of the 138 that we've got in the system. It's increased on last month, which was only 35. So obviously the COVID is having an effect on some of those, which would be about 8 of those. So if you remove those 8 out of the mix, we've still got 29 out of 138 KPIs that we're off track at this point in time, which means still 20%, which is above the 10% satisfactory level. So definitely the senior management group will have to continue to monitor that and push along to make sure that that we meet those KPIs to the satisfactory level as what has been indicated. Just a pie graph there just gives you the blowout of what percentages sit where. We've got 10 on amber at the moment, so that those ones could turn red, but hopefully we'll turn them to green before the end of the financial year. Moving in just to the fund and function summary on pages 9 through to 12. Here is just giving you an overview of where our funds are sitting, the general water and sewer, but then also the service areas or the function areas that we've got coming through just from the different income and expense categories there. As you can see, that there is some votes coming through, which we'll highlight as we go through the detailed area. And we've more or less revised down our capital works by about another 700K, which is mainly due to the reseals coming through. So I'll just highlight that as we're coming down. On page 13 and 14 is the votes that we're proposing coming through. So these will show up as we're coming through the service areas. And they're more or less going through ins and outs coming through, either within the service entities themselves or off to RAs and so forth. Moving into the bank rec and investments on page 15, 16. So as you can see with the graph there, we're sort of like a little bit going back up there to the end of March. Our investments sit at about 31 million at this point in time on page 16. And as you can see, the interest rates we're getting is appalling. So that's the reason why the interest is way down. And our borrowings on page 17, as you can see, the overall principal outstanding at the end of March is just under 34 million. So that's where we're sitting at the moment. Then we move through to the net current assets position for each of those funds. So that's just more or less giving you an indication of where we think we're going to end up with our net current position. And then we'll just move into the RAs. So with the RAs, the movements I've got in there, the request variations is more or less shown for the whole quarter, more or less because we haven't seen the RAs for since the end of December. I've put the quarter in there. So where it says request votes this month, it should say this quarter. So just to highlight that. But overall, as you can see, there is a lot of votes going through the RAs, and that's mainly due to getting ready for the budget preparations in the current year with items that won't transpire by year end. Moving into the red KPIs. So the red KPIs is, hopefully you can see it a little bit better coming through. We've tried to make it a little bit easier to read on page 36 through to 39. As you can see, the off-track key performance indicators there. So that's there for your just very quick summarisation of where they are throughout the major service areas.
questions? No questions? Okay, someone like to move that points 1 to 5 on page 1? Councillor Burns, second. Myself. In favour? Against? Carried. Over to page 40, operational report.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. So we'll go quickly through this. Any questions or anything, just raise them as they are, and but I'll just continue to yabber on until I get a question coming through, just giving highlights of where the actual position of each of the service areas are. Asset management on page 43 to 44, they've got no votes or surrenders here. We're a little bit in front of budget at the moment, and it's mainly due to the admin costs there. Obviously, with some of the guys in the strategic assets area, they put some of their time off to capital works jobs. So obviously, we've used them towards capital works a lot more than what we have for just normal general operational. So that's good. So that's a bit of a saving towards the back end of the year. The KPIs on pages 45, 4 green indicators there, so there's nothing to highlight there. Communications on page 46, got some votes coming through here that effectively is just offsetting a couple of expense items with the a bit of increase in software licensing and subscriptions. But also we've back into the RA, the community survey. Obviously that won't be done until next year once the CSP is done, the strategic plan. So back into the RA for the 2022 year. KPI side of things on pages 47 to 48, 2 green indicators there, so there's nothing to highlight there. Corporate services, got no votes or surrenders coming through there, well in front of budget at this point in time. Obviously with the vacancy in the corporate planning area, so there's a big saving in there and a bit under in salaries and training and internal fleet hire and just the admin costs there. So apart from that, nothing to highlight. There's a red indicator though with our policy still. So we're improving as we're going through, as you can see by the little worm there. So it's going back up to hopefully the 90% by the end of the financial year. So that'll come back into line. Customer service on page 51, no votes or surrenders here. Nearly spot on budget. We just got a little bit under in our revenue, but also we've got a bit of saving in our admin costs there, so they nearly offset each other. And the KPI on 52 is a green indicator. Depot operations on pages 53, 54, no votes or surrenders coming through. Nearly spot on overall. At the moment, we're a little bit overspent in our building maintenance area there, so we're just going to have a look at those costs to see whether anything in there can be capitalised, but it's offset by some underspends coming through the other areas within that operation expenses. So apart from that, nothing to highlight. The financial services on 55 to 56. Here we've just got a movement of some budget allocation down to the acquisition of a few more additional furnishings that were required in March. So net result is 0 on the bottom line there. A little bit overspent at this point in time, mainly in regards to our cleaning costs and also our payroll group area there. So with the cleaning costs, we've just had additional external contract cleaning costs coming through. That contract is actually up for tender at the end of June. So that will be coming back to council in the near future. And the payroll group, we've just had some back pay adjustments over the past probably 2 years. So that's pushed that cost back up there. So hopefully we'll bring that back into alignment before the end of the year. KPI side of things on 57 is 2 green indicators there. And in our on-cost area there, we're pretty well chugging along okay in regards to that. Obviously, we will have some movement in that with the school holidays over the April period and obviously the Easter public holiday period. So that may move a little bit in next quarter back into alignment. Moving into fleet management on pages 59 to 60. Here we've got a couple of votes and a surrender, which is more or less just gone back to the RA. So we're a little bit overspending salaries in the admin area, but underspending supervision costs. So that'll just go in the RA. Overall, you can see there that we're a little bit behind budget at the moment, and that's mainly due to the internal fleet hire charges. So hopefully as that catches up, it'll come back into parity. KPI side of things on pages 61 through to 63, all green indicators there, so there's nothing to highlight there. General management on page 64, no votes or surrenders here, a little bit in front of budget, so we've got a bit of a cost saving there. Obviously, with the vacancy in the GM's position over different parts of the year, ends up being a little bit of a cost saving there. Moving into the KPIs on 65, one green indicator there, so there's nothing to highlight there. Governance and risk on 66. We've got a small vote and surrender coming through there, so we're just moving some costs in between the admin cost area and the general expenses, just to cover off some additional legal and compliance database software license costs coming through. Overall, we're a little bit in front of budget, which is fine. KPI side of things on 67, a green indicator there, so nothing to highlight there. Human resources on page 68, no votes or surrenders coming through here, and a little bit in front of budget, which is good, just mainly in regards to our trainee costs area there. We're starting to employ our trainees again. Last year we had a bit of a we didn't go through the process of employing the trainees until the end of January of this current financial year. So we just had a 6 months off period, but now we're starting to employ those. So we've put a new one in the infrastructure at this point in time, and I think we've got a couple of other ones that are going through the employment or the recruitment phase at this stage. KPI side of things, here we've got a red indicator on 69. So the red indicator is more or less in regards to the workforce management plan. So effectively with that, we haven't commenced on that, and with the deferral of the actual elections, it's not really required until next financial year when we do the CSP. So they all come into alignment with the CSP. So at this point in time, we haven't progressed that too far. But obviously that will be a red indicator by the end of the financial year because it's sitting in there. So, but we'll have to make a note of that. The information services on page 70, no votes or surrenders coming through. Here we're a little bit overspent at this point in time, just in regards to mainly timing with regards to information systems management, which is more or less our software consultants and so forth. So if we have more work needs doing on IT problems, it generally goes up and down. But record management also is overspent at this point in time, and that's mainly due to the additional legal costs we've had to spend in regards to GIPA requirements. So unfortunately we've been slammed with a few more legal costs there, plus we'll be getting more legal costs over the course of the next quarter, I would think, over the next 3 months in regards to dealing with the number of GIPA requests. Moving into our KPIs on page 71, here we've got a green indicator, so nothing to highlight there. Infrastructure support on page 72, no votes or surrenders here. Well overspending our admin area here, so we're just going to have to go through and have a good review of those costs and see why that's well overspent at this point in time. Apart from that, there's nothing else in there. KPI side of thing on 73, we've got 2 green indicators there, so there's nothing to highlight there. Revenue services, here we've got a few movements within the service area, mainly reducing our revenue down, so a surrender in the revenue, and increasing our salaries area there, so a vote coming in there, and then also a surrender in our debt recovery side of things. And it's mainly due to the first 6 months or up to the end of March not being allowed to debt recover. So obviously we won't get any revenue or costs attached to that. So it's they're more or less offsetting each other there. We have had additional 603s, which is property transfers. So that's been good in regards to the whole economy itself. So a lot of property is moving at this point in time. KPI side of things, here we've got 2 green indicators and a red indicator. The red indicator is the ones that are 90 days, the unarranged accounts receivable greater than 90 days. So it's about 42,000 over at this point in time of where we'd like to be. Obviously with the debt recovery, we haven't been able to do any debt recovery, formal debt recovery coming through. However, the revenue staff will continue to review those amounts and trying to bring those down as far as we can. So, and we can commence our debt collection from April. So hopefully that will come back down over the course of the next quarter. Stores and purchasing on page 78, no votes or surrenders coming through here. Here we're a little bit in front of budget, mainly due to in our initial budget, we had an allocation in there for a store assistant, and we haven't filled that position at this point in time. So we've got a little bit of a saving there. The actual level of stock with our KPI on page 79, here we're a little bit over what our target is at this point, but it's sitting in an amber position at the moment. Obviously, the storeman will go through and make sure that that comes down to the target by the end of the financial year, especially when we were doing stock takes in May. So we'll bring that back down. Sustainability on page 80. Here we've got no votes or surrenders coming through. A little bit overspent at this point in, or a little bit over budget at this point in time, mainly in regards to, there's been no sustainability workshops held today. So I'm not sure whether the manager of sustainability is got that on his radar at this point. But also the costs in regards to admin costs are a little bit overspent at this point. So it's a little bit overspent, not by much, not too much there, but it is overspent. Moving into the KPIs on page 81, 2 green indicators there. So there's nothing to highlight there. Education, admin and education in community services. On page 82, no votes or surrenders coming through there, and we're a little bit in front of budget at this point, just a little bit under budget in our salaries and training there, so a bit of a saving on the bottom line. Moving into our KPIs on pages 83 to 84, 2 green indicators there, so there's nothing to highlight there. Aged care government place. Here we've got 0 on the in votes and surrenders coming through, so we've just got a couple of movements inside of the service entity here, just moving some costs out of our admin cost area there, and also our personal care area, and putting it into the registered nurse. Obviously with our registered nurse over there, the cost for it is higher than what we anticipated, mainly due to having to put a contracted nurse in there when we had some vacancies. So that pushed our costs up, but now we've got a registered nurse on tap over there. It's quite good. Overall, we're a little bit behind budget by about 30K. So hopefully as we're coming through, we'll catch that up. The other thing to note in there is that the building maintenance is way over budget, and the upgrade to laundry and storeroom area is under budget. Cost for that actual construction was put into building maintenance, so those will be moved out at the next in this month. So we're just going through identifying those costs. Apart from that, nothing else to highlight. KPI side of things, here we've got 2 green indicators and an amber indicator. We've still got 1 room that's vacant over there at this point in time. Hopefully we'll have that filled. It's always imperative that we try and fill all the rooms over there. Moving into independent living units on page 90 to 91. Here we've just got 1 vote going in on both sides of the ledger. So we've just got recognising the increase in our insurance claim, plus also the increase in the cost of the reconstruction of the units up there. They're going quite well. They should be finished by the end of the financial year, so which is good. At this point, I think the guys up there, we've been seeing a lot of traction. Overall, year to date, as you can see there, we're a little bit overspent at this point in time. We've just been doing a bit more building maintenance in regards to the other independent living units as well. So we'll go through and review those to make sure there's no capital in there. But these ones more or less are covered off by RAs throughout the mix, so they're going to cover off that overexpend on maintenance. Moving into the KPI, there we've got an amber indicator, so it's just a got those couple of buildings vacant. Before and after school care on pages 93 to 94. Here again, we've just got some movements inside the service operations expenditure. Just more or less moving some money from our vacation care area up into the after and before school care position. So we're just more or less offsetting some of the additional costs we've endured with additional staffing that was being required by the department in those two areas there. Overall, we're a little bit in front of budget, which is quite good. So we've had a bit more attraction with kids up there, and that means that the fees have gone up, or our revenue from fees are up from coming through. And as you can see on the KPIs coming through on 95 through to 97, got two green indicators there, which is your which is the increase above the target for the utilisation for the after and before school care. So nearly a child or two higher coming through on average. The only amber one there is we're a little bit just below in regards to our vacation care area there, but not by much at all. Early Learning Centre, here we've got no votes or surrenders coming through. This is well behind at the moment, as I said earlier, with the revenue streams coming through. So obviously we'll be looking at employment of that early learning teacher, childcare teacher. So hopefully those revenues will start pushing back up and reduce down that loss coming through. So nothing else to highlight there. And on page 100 here on the KPI, as you can see, our utilisations are well down. So that's the reason for the revenue streams going backwards. So it's on an amber position at this point in time. Family daycare on page 101, no votes or surrenders coming through here. Nearly smack on budget coming through overall. Just still a little bit of movements in regards to our revenue, money from childcare subsidies, but there's an offsetter against that, which is the payments to the carers. So as you can see on the KPI on 102, our educators are well down on what we anticipated. So that's mainly been a COVID and also some school holiday effects. Moving into social protection on pages 103 to 104, no votes or surrenders coming through here. And we're a little bit in front of where we thought we'd be at this point in time of the year. And it's mainly a bit lower in our International Women's Days expenses. So there's probably just a bit of a timing issue there. So that should come back into alignment. KPI side of things, we've got two green indicators and a red indicator, and the red indicator is mainly the update and completion of the new DIAP. So there's been no action on it for this month. So obviously we'll be starting to attack that over the course of the next 3 months. Youth services on pages 108 to 109, no votes or surrenders coming through here. So overall, we're a little bit in front of budget, which is quite good. A little bit offsetters there, more or less. We're a little bit down in our revenue streams at this point with just users coming through the facility, which you'll see in the KPIs. But our costs are also down. So our building maintenance is a bit lower than we anticipated, and also the actual operations of the centres with the drop-ins and EIPP is a little bit lower at this point in time. The EIPP obviously will catch up because that's a grant-funded item of it. So we'll be definitely hitting the mark in regards to that, which should bring it back into balance. With the KPIs on page 110 through to 113, here we've got 3 green indicators and 1 red indicator. So the red indicator is more or less the number of attendances of the kids coming through the facility at this point in time. So it's down by a substantial margin to date. So hopefully there'll be more attraction and with promotion of the service in the local high schools, that may bring some more kids back into the facility for us. Moving into camping areas and caravan parks. Here we've got no votes or surrenders coming through here. Well and truly overspent in this area. We're well and truly over budget, and it's mainly in regards to our caravan park expenses. So we've had significant higher higher cost for the caravan attendant salaries over there. So just reviewing that before a possible vote's brought through in regards to it. So obviously with COVID, we had to have a lot more hours on the ground over there with our attendants to make sure our visitors were doing the right things. But that's a cost to council though, unfortunately. Moving into the KPIs on pages 16 to 17, 2 green indicators there. So obviously the facilities utilisation is quite buoyant at this point. Everyone getting out and about again. Community Connect services on page 118, no votes or surrenders coming through here. A little bit in front of budget, and it's mainly just with our revenue. We've got a bit of increased agency fees from Centrelink, which has been quite good. Economic promotion, here we've got a couple of votes coming through, and it's mainly just to recognise the initiative that was done at Christmas time with the down Kelly Street. So it was Summer Fun Christmas event. So $10,000 in grant funding and then $10,000 in expenses itself. Overall, year to date, we're a little bit overspent, but majority of that is the summer fun money that's there. So it's 7,000 of the 10,000. Apart from that, everything else is pretty well in alignment. Moving into our KPI side of things, we've got 2 green indicators there. So that's quite good. Private works on page 123. Here we're well behind where we thought we'd be in regards to our private works. Obviously, the demand for private works has dropped away significantly. So it's more or less we're just doing works as and when required. But it's still like we're still getting the profit margin coming through, but the volume of sales is dropped away significantly. Could be a bit of a timing issue there also. There could be some invoices still to be punched out of the system as well. KPI, as I said, it's a green indicator. Real estate on pages 125 through to 127. Here we've just got a little vote going through that's just coming out of the property RA, and it's just a little bit extra cost in regards to the renovations out there at Beddington Street, the doctor's surgery, just to finalise those costs off at year end. Overall, we're nearly spot on budget on the bottom line there, but there's a lot of movement inside the actual service entity itself. As you can see, the commercial property revenue, it's well down at this point in time, and that's mainly due to COVID relief coming through. Land development, a sale went through that was earlier than what we anticipated, so it's up there. So overall, our revenue streams are a little bit buoyant. The other side of it in operation expenses, we're a little bit underspent in our admin area, but we're overspent at this point in time in building maintenance. So we're going to have a look at those costs and just see whether or not any capital works have gone into those costs. But also the Crown Lands plans of management, that's well and truly above budget at this point in time. Obviously, we'll have to go through and look at that to see whether or not we'll bring a vote through the system.
Well, just on Campbell's Corner, what's the latest on any more rents going into those buildings?
Yeah, we've rented to the Chamber of Commerce. There is somebody going into the cafe. So I think that's about it.
All right, because there was word someone from Muswellbrook was going to move into the cafe, but then there was someone from Scone.
Yeah, there's somebody from Scone who wants a temporary location, so we're probably going to accommodate that, whilst the permanent tenant is looking at refurbishment and things like that, and that has been agreed to with all parties.
Okay, moving into our KPI side of things on pages 128 through to 130. Here we've got 2 green indicators, an amber and a red. The amber one is more or less in regards to the budgeted lease revenue. The 2 red indicators at the moment is mainly in regards to the Crown Lands area. Obviously, there's a major body of work that has to be done in regards to that. So as you can see, we haven't achieved completion of many plans of management, but we've actually been going through doing a hell of a lot of native title project completion. So we've got 14 projects completed at this point in time, 4 in negotiation and a further 24 in progress. So there's a lot of work going on in that space. KPI side of things on 130, a green indicator there, so nothing to highlight there. The sale yards area, no votes or surrenders coming through here. Obviously, this will be a business entity that we'll go through and have a good review of and bring back votes probably at the next meeting after all the operational reviews. As you can see, as highlighted in the summary, we're down by about $270,000 in our user fees, but our operational costs is higher than budget. Truck wash costs are higher than budget and utility costs are higher than budget. So we really need to go through and work out why they're over. Yard maintenance is under budget at this point in time, underspent, and that's understandable based on the number of cattle going through the yard. So obviously we wouldn't have as much maintenance coming through. So overall, we're about nearly $300,000 behind where we thought we might be at this point. So that's one area where we'll have to get into and see where we're going to fall out by the year end.
On that one, Phelpsy truck wash.
Yep.
Water charges over budget due to a major leakage. You'd hope that wasn't leaking for very long.
Yes, I'd have to take it on notice to let you know how long that was.
Especially when we've got employees up there all the time, you'd think that that'd be picked up.
Yep. So we'll take it on notice and come back with further information in regards to it. That's fine. Unless the director of corporate.
Yeah, it's been fixed. I'm not sure how long that went undetected, but I think it's been fixed now. So hopefully once we get the tanks up and running, we won't have that issue.
Okay, thank you. The KPI side of things, we've got 2 green indicators and the red indicator. The red indicator is predominantly the numbers. So obviously, as you can see there, we're about 8,000 numbers behind. So coming through. 136, we've got the golf course. So here we're a little bit over budget at this point in time. We've just got to raise our contribution for the golfers at the facility down there. So we'll be raising that this month, hopefully. So we're just waiting on some data to come back to us from the golf club itself to let us know what the paying membership is.
So just another question on the golf course. What's their long-term plans with this? Are we going to do some bluff work on something, getting someone interested? What's their plan? We're going to keep running this as a loss like we are?
Through you, or to you, Mr. Mayor, this has been a concern of mine. I've discussed it with the director and the finance manager. I think we need to come up with a bit of a strategy first. I've got a couple of ideas in my head, but at this stage, I'll be sort of just shooting from the hip to throw those around. There is, I think, a need to develop our own facility down there so that we're not leaking funds directly to another provider. However, how we go about that at this stage hasn't been decided. We need to get some professional advice on that.
So there was a little bit of movement around here a while back with a private person. Is that anyone followed that through?
That hasn't. I think there's been discussions, but it hasn't really gone anywhere. That particular individual, it's just at the bottom of his priority list at the moment. Apparently, I've been told.
Right. So I wonder whether we should just touch base on that again and just see.
Yeah, we could reignite that. Yes.
Okay. And our expenses are a little bit higher than budget at this point in time. So that's pretty well where the golf course is sitting at this point. Moving into tourism and area promotion. Here we've got just a couple of surrenders going through, mainly just in regards to the visitor attendance at the facilities at the VICs has been a lot lower. So that means that the kiosk sales and purchases are quite a lot lower as well. So just a small variation there. Overall, year to date, we're a little bit in front of budget. So, and that's mainly in regards to just our general costs. Yep. Moving into our KPI side of things on 139 through to 141. Here we've got 2 red indicators and a green indicator. So obviously there's a couple of red indicators there affected by COVID, which has been the number of visitors through it and also the referrals to accommodations and so forth. Noxious plants and vermin control on 142, no votes or surrenders and spot on budget, so nothing to highlight there. Waste management on 143 through to 145. Here we've got no votes or surrenders coming through. And overall, as you can see, we're a little bit behind budget at this point in time, as highlighted just with our costs coming through for the waste there for the Scone landfill site and also the mobile garbage bin collection and state government levies coming through. So fingers crossed that'll come back into alignment by the end of the year. But as I said, the area there has turned around quite significantly from where it was last year. So that's always a good sign. Moving into our KPIs on pages 146 through to 149, 4 green indicators there, so there's nothing to highlight there. Stormwater management on pages 150 to 151, no votes or surrenders coming through. Here overall, we're well and truly underspent in our budget here. Money in regards to drainage maintenance, which is about 70,000 underspent at this point in time, but also in our capital works area, just with the Oxford Road open channel. So obviously those 2 items will be put on the agenda to bring back into alignment or be cost saving to the bottom line. KPI side of things on page 152 to 154. 155, I beg your pardon. We've got 2 green indicators and 2 red indicators. The red indicators are in regards to the capital works program at this point, and also the number of complaints due to our drainage overflows. So that may be partially as a result of maintenance that we haven't done as yet. So we'll need to be mindful of those going forward. Street cleaning on page 156. No votes or surrenders coming through here. A little bit overspent at this point in time, but it's mainly due to just the timing of our full town sweep. So it was done a bit earlier than we anticipated. So it should be come back into budget by the end of the year. KPI side of things, it's a green indicator there, so there's nothing to highlight there. Rates, grants and interest revenue, as highlighted on, this is on 158. As highlighted before, the 2 areas there is the interest and investment incomes down, as well as the rates and charges, which is the interest component within there for the overdue rate. So that's the 2 main drivers behind that lower revenue streams. KPI side of things on 159, excuse me, is a green indicator there, so nothing to highlight there. Council services on 160. Here we've got just movement of a few dollars around in votes and surrenders inside the operational expenses. More or less just moving money into the Hunter Joint Organisation's annual contribution, just to clear that off. So we've moved it out of the admin area there, so a little bit lower in salaries and travel, and in general expenses a little bit lower in our legal conference and training at this point in time. So we've just moved those into there. Overall, we're in front of budget by 35,000. So that may be a saving to the bottom line by the end of the year. KPI side of things. Here we've got 1 red indicator and a green indicator. 1 red indicator is the CSP. So obviously with the elections being deferred, we won't be doing our CSP, so that'll remain red until the end of the year. Again, that'll be another one that we probably need to make note of to say that it's totally outside of our control in regards to it. Moving into health services on page 162, no votes or surrenders here, and we're well in front of budget at this point in time. We may be down in our statutory fees and charges, but also we're also down in our costs as well. So the costs outweigh the lower revenue streams, and it's mainly due to vacancies that we've got in that area, which hopefully we're trying to fill at this point. So that more or less leads into the KPIs on 163 to 164. As you can see, that the inspections are well down because we haven't had the people on the ground to do them, unfortunately. So
Through
hopefully
Mr. Chair, we're
we'll,
about to fill that role, that EHO role. So
very good.
things will turn around.
Yep, thank you. Moving into emergency housing on 165, there's no votes, no surrenders, no budget at this point in time. So move into the next one, which is low income housing on 166, no votes or surrenders coming through there. A little bit, nearly on budget, but a little bit over there, just mainly building maintenance. So building maintenance a little bit higher than we anticipated. The red KPI we've got in there, we're just reviewing our partnership agreement with the Upper Hunter homeless area organisation, and it's a little bit behind at this point in time. So there's a red indicator there. Obviously, we'll have that sorted by the end of the year, though. Public cemeteries on pages 168 to 169, no votes or surrenders coming through here. A little bit behind budget at this point in time, and it's mainly our user fees and charges are down. So there's been lower demand for site plots, columbariums and interment fees at this point. So it's one that's outside our control unless we go out and make some money out of coming through. Moving into our KPIs on 170 to 171. Nothing at all, Councillor Fisher, nothing at all. Moving into the KPIs on 170 to 171, a red indicator here and a green indicator. The red indicator is in regards to just some capital works. With the lower revenue, the extension to the Scone facility, we'll probably push that back and defer it till next year. Public conveniences on 172, no votes or surrenders coming through here, and a little bit overspent at this point in time, mainly just in our servicing and maintenance costs of the facilities out at the different areas in the parks and so forth. KPI side of things on 173, it's a green indicator there. So obviously we're doing well because we hadn't had any complaints in regards to our facilities in the month. Street lighting on 174, no votes or surrenders here, a little bit in front of budget. So charges have been a little bit lower than we anticipated. A little bit of a timing thing there, probably a month's electricity to go in there, but it's definitely not not $35,000 worth of cost. So we might have a saving there by year end. KPI side of things, a green indicator there on 175. So nothing to highlight there. Town planning on 176 to 177. No votes or surrenders coming through. Here we're a little bit in front of budget again. So our town planning area is going along quite well. So we're getting plenty of work through there. So contributions are up, as well as our statutory fees and charges, which is quite good. But at the good offsetter against that is our costs are also down. So it's a win-win both sides of the ledger. So that's quite good. And as you can tell by the KPIs, we're in front of our KPIs in the three indicators there. So that's a good result. 181, we've got building control. No votes or surrenders in this service area. Again, well in front of budget. And again, our statutory fees are up and our costs are down as well. So we have got some vacancy in that area as well. So, so we've had a bit of savings coming through there. So that's going quite well at this point in time. Moving into our KPIs on 182 to 183. We've got one green indicator and one red indicator, and the red indicator is just mainly the time taken just with the occupation certificates. So it's slightly over for this month, but obviously that will be addressed by the director coming through to bring that back down in underneath the requirement, the target.
Through Mr. Chair, yes, that's correct. It was 1.5 days we were over there, so
yep,
we'll fix that up next month.
Perfect. Very good. Quarry operations on page 184. Here we've got no votes or surrenders here. Here we're well behind budget, and obviously it's due in part to the quarry revenues. So as we highlighted in the summary, quarry revenues are quite down at this point in time. And there's also a lot of work being done out there in regards to the compliance work and crushing side of things. So hopefully that will turn around and come back up. But as you can see on 185, the amount of material coming out has dropped away significantly. So we'll have to address that, especially with Bunnan Road going ahead as it's going at the moment. Animal control on 186. No votes or surrenders coming through here. A little bit overspent at this point in time, or a little bit over budget at this point in time. Just our revenues are lower than anticipated. So it's one of those ones where we just have to go through. It's a very small budget coming through, so it's quite big movements if we don't generate fines and so forth coming through. Moving into our KPIs on 187 to 188. Here we've both two green indicators, so the service is actually tracking quite well. It's just the revenue streams coming in. Moving into emergency services on 189 to 190. Here we just got a small adjustment for some design works that is being done on the extension to the RFS and SES shed out at Merriwar. Obviously in the next year's budget, we've got a fair whack of money for extension of that shed. So this is just the design works coming through to get that up and going. Overall year to date, we are a little bit underspent at this point in time, and it's mainly due to the capital works area where the Marundi SES shed is a little bit behind the schedule at this point. So it's expected to be finished by the end of June though. So that should catch itself up. KPIs on 191, two green indicators there, so there's nothing to highlight there. Fire service and protection, levy and protection, here on 192 to 193, no votes or surrenders coming through here. A little bit underspent at this point in time, which is quite good, just in our general expenses, and our RFS vehicle maintenance has been lower than we anticipated. So that's quite good. So hopefully that will stay where it is and be a bit of a saving at the end of the year. LG regulation enforcement on 194. Here we've got no votes or surrenders coming through. A little bit in front of budget, which is quite good, and it's just money due to a bit of extra revenue there. So that's quite good. KPI side of things on 195 to 196, two green indicators there, so nothing to highlight there. Community centres and halls on page 197 to 198, no votes or surrenders coming through here, and we're nearly smack on budget, so there's nothing really to highlight inside there. And KPI side of things, amber indicator there, but it's mainly due to just the booking out of our halls, obviously with COVID and the restrictions, and doing a lot of our COVID plans and so forth, and council's policy in regards to renting out to external bodies our own rooms. We've limited that down for the course of the rest of the year, just so that we can keep COVID safe predominantly. So it'll stay probably on an amber indicator. Cultural services on pages 200 to 201, no votes or surrenders coming through here. A little bit underspent at this point in time. Just with a number of our programs there, we're a little bit underspent. In Australia Day, the community programs and events, and also grants and donations, probably mainly just to do with timing. So hopefully that'll come back into alignment. KPI side of things is a green indicator on 202, so there's nothing else to highlight there. Museums, no votes or surrenders coming through here. Again, a little bit underspent, which is quite good. Building maintenance is a little bit lower than we anticipated, but also our capital works for the Merriwell Bottle Museum, we haven't had to expend that money to date coming through. Other sport and rec on 204. Here we've just got a couple of votes either side of the ledger. So with the Merriwell, the Tour de Merriwell cycling event, we have revenue coming in for that event, and the cost will go out the other side. So it's a neutral income and expenditure event itself. So it should bring it back into alignment. And that's the only reason why we're above budget at the moment in the year to date. Moving into the KPIs, we've got 2 green indicators and a red indicator. The red indicator is only due to where we had our target in March for the school holidays. The school holidays actually happened in this month, so it'll catch up pretty quick. So nothing else to highlight there. Moving into Parks and Gardens on pages 208 to 209, no votes or surrenders coming through here. A little bit overspent to date, and it's mainly just in regards to our maintenance and servicing costs, and in regards to both the parks and also the tree maintenance. So obviously we will be reviewing those costs to make sure we try and bring that back underneath the budget by the end of the year. Effectively, yeah, just with the weather conditions and so forth. So obviously coming into winter, those costs may start to diminish down as needed. Moving into the KPIs on pages 210 to 211, here we've got 1 green indicator and a red indicator, and the red indicator is the some complaints in regards to the actual parks and gardens themselves. So obviously we'll be addressing those to mitigate those requests. So moving into our public libraries on 212 to 213, no votes or surrenders coming through there. A little bit in front of budget at the moment, and it's mainly due to the admin cost area there. Just under budget in salaries, they haven't re-engaged the trainee to date, so there's been a bit of savings in regards to that coming through. Moving into the KPI side of things, and again, these are ones that get affected by the COVID-19 issues. So we've got 3 green indicators, 2 reds and an amber. So out of those 6, the 2 that are red is mainly in regards to the library loans annually is down, plus also the visits to the library itself. So they're also down at this point in time. The other one that's an amber, which is in regards to the new memberships, library memberships. Obviously with visitors reduced, it makes that difficult, but they did have a pop-up event this month. So hopefully they would have generated a few more members out of that pop-up event that they had. Sporting grounds and venues on pages 220 to 222, no votes or surrenders coming through here. As you can see, we're well underspent here, and it's mainly due to the capital expenditure side of things. So 370,510 relates to that capital expenditure. So the other side of that is gives us the 370,000. Is sporting grounds is higher than budget, as we highlighted in the summary pages, and also the White Park operations is well and truly higher than budget. So again, those are the 2 areas where we'll need to look at and look at the business ventures out with White Park itself. Moving through to the KPIs on pages 223 to 224, got a 1 green indicator and a red indicator. The red indicator is obviously the capital works program. Apart from that, nothing else to highlight. Swimming pools, no votes or surrenders on 225 to 226, and it's nearly dead spot on budget. Overall, our operation expenses are up and down within itself, so it's nothing to highlight there. KPI side of things, it's a green indicator there, so nothing to highlight there. Aerodrome on pages 228 to 229, no votes or surrenders coming through here. Again, we're in front of budget by the 500, of which 655 of that relates to the capital expenditure, as highlighted before. And as highlighted in the summary pages as well, our operational and admin costs are above budget coming through. So it's quite overspent at this point in time with that contracted ARO being employed. The KPI side of things, we've got 5 green indicators there coming through, so nothing to highlight there. Bridges on pages 235 to 236, got no votes or surrenders coming through here. We're well in front of budget at this point in time by about 304,000. 116 relates to the 117 relates to the capital works program, which is mainly Omerdale Brook Bridge. But also, as we highlighted these areas in the summary pages, we're a little bit higher in our grant revenue and underspent in our maintenance side of things. So that's why it's pushing up the positive variance there. KPI side of things, we've got 2 green indicators there, so there's nothing to highlight there. Footpaths and cycleways on 239, no votes or surrenders. Here we're well in front of budget coming through, and mainly due to lower maintenance, footpath maintenance undertaken to date. Plus also our capital works is behind again. So obviously we'll have to catch that up by year end. KPI side of things, we've got 2 indicators and they're both red. One's relating to the capital works program and the other's relating to the customer requests in regards to unsafe conditions. So obviously we'll have to address that with our maintenance coming through. So we'll need to get in and look at where those unsafe conditions were and correct those. Moving into our state roads on page 242, no votes or surrenders. And as you can see, this is massively outside of budget, and it's twofold. Our revenue streams are down and our costs are up. So hopefully that will all turn around over the course of when these claims are made in the next period, and possibly we may have to do some votes coming through to increase the revenue streams based on the revenue, the expenditure that's been had to the end of March. Moving into our KPIs on pages 243 to 244, 1 green indicator and a red indicator coming through. So we'll have to address that red indicator in April. Moving into our regional roads on pages 245 to 246. Here we'll see the first drop off into an RA of the reseal program. So we're underspending our reseal program by about 130K there. So we put that back into an RA. Overall, we're underspent at this point in time, mainly due to the capital works budget itself. So the reseals and so forth. Apart from that, nothing else to highlight. KPIs, 2 red indicators and 1 green indicator. The red indicator obviously is the capital works program. And the second one is in regards to the road network resealed. So obviously the underspend in the reseal, we won't be able to meet that target. Moving into local roads on 250 to 252. Here again, you'll see a lot of votes and surrenders coming through. So again, we're just backing into the RA, the reseals coming through the mix, and also we're putting a little vote in against Waverley Street there just to finalise that seal up there, the shoulder seal. So on the dirt, so it's so that'll bring that back up a little bit. So apart from that, overall year to date, we're about 500,000 behind, which is effectively again the capital works program. There's a fair bit of movement or a fair bit of variations, as you'll see on page 250 through to 251 for our maintenance programs there. But up and down, overall, we're pretty line ball coming through the mix, but we'll need to address those and make sure that we spend that money on our maintenance, obviously with the community wanting more and more maintenance done on our roads as they stand at this point in time. KPI side of things on pages 253 to 257. Here we've got 1 green indicator, an amber indicator, and 3 red ones. So obviously indicates that we're well behind in our capital programs in regards to the actual work itself, but also our reseal and our inspection regime. So inspection regimes, we might be able to bring that back up into on target, but the reseals again, as I said, the reseal program is actually in front of budget. The one is the unsealed grading maintenance, so that's the one that's behind. So as we do more maintenance, we may bring that up, but I don't think we'll get to the target as set by the year end. Transport auxiliaries on pages 258 to 259. Here we've got no votes or surrenders coming through. A little bit underspent at this point in time, mainly in regards to capital expenditure at this point, just with a couple of the, just with the revitalisation down here, and also 133 Kelly Street. But also we're a little bit underspent in our facilities, traffic facilities maintenance as well with our line markings. So obviously we'll have to address that coming through. So that should bring back that into budget. Overall KPI side of things on 260 to 261, you've got two red indicators there in regards to the capital works program and the line marking annually. So it doesn't look like that KPI has been done. So we'll need to address that for next month to make sure that's completed. Moving into our water supply area here, and as highlighted in the summary area, with our revenues being down slightly in our consumption of water. So we've got a few surrenders coming through in these areas. So on Merriwar water and sewer, water, sorry, our user fees have gone down by 50,000, which is straight off the RA there. Overall, year to date, we're a little bit in front of budget, and it's mainly due to the capital expenditure side of things. So we're a little underspent in our capital expenditure, as highlighted in the summary pages. Murrundi water, here we're a little bit lower in our consumption charges, but also we've added some money back into the pipeline area. So the surveying work for the easements out there is being done quicker than what we anticipated. So so we've had a bit of extra cost coming through. So that's just come back out of the RA as well. Overall, year to date, we're well and truly behind budget at this point. And it's mainly due to our capital expenditure in this area. So obviously with some big projects in this one being the reservoir and pipeline, they're tracking along really well, which is great. But we're overspent in a number of our operational areas as well, being the mains, the pump stations and the water treatment area. So we'll have to go through and review those to make sure there's no capital renewals in those areas. Scone water. So here again, we've got the lower revenue stream. So we've had to do a surrender back into the its RA. So overall, year to date, we're a little bit ahead of budget, even with the lower revenue streams, and it's mainly due to the capital expenditure side of it, again, as highlighted in the summary pages. So obviously that's the main reason for that. Again, as highlighted in the summary pages as well, the costs for our reservoirs and water treatment activities are well above budget on 268. So we'll need to go through and review those to see whether we can capitalise any of that works. Water supply KPIs, we've got one amber indicator and two green indicators, so there's nothing to highlight there. Merriwar sewerage, here we've got small surrenders going in. Again, with the sewerage services, we'll have some surrenders going back into the RAs. And the surrender is mainly in regards to the relining works. So obviously we won't get to the relining works this year. So we'll be pushing that for next year. Overall, year to date, for Merriwar sewerage, we're well in front of budget, which is mainly due to the capital expenditure again. So we'll have to getting into that coming through. It's mainly the Merriwar sewer pump station works there. Apart from that, nothing else to highlight. Merriwar Murrundi sewerage, here again, you've got the relining going back into the RA. Again, we're underspent, or we're in front of budget here, and it's mainly due to the capital works again coming through. So apart from that, nothing else really to highlight there. Scone sewerage, here again, we've dumped the relining back into the RA, but also we've had a bit of extra cost in regards to the access road down to the Scone sewer treatment plant. So we've put a little vote coming back into there. This offset against the RA as well. Year to date, we're about 360,000 in front of budget. and 378 of that relates to the capital expenditure side of things again. So obviously we need to take that on board. Moving into our KPIs for our sewerage area, we've got 2 green indicators and 2 red indicators. The red indicator is in regards to the capital works projects, and also the other red indicator is in regards to the asset renewal percentage for depreciation. So it's behind being the having a capital expenditure as its driver. And following that, we've just got a summary of all our capital expenditure going through. So just for your information, just a summarised version of where each of the capital works projects sit at this point in time. As indicated earlier, we're well behind in our capital works program. And if you look on page 299, as you can see there, we've got a revised capital works program of 42 mil, and we've only spent 21. So we're only spent half the capital works expenditure at this point in time. So we've got 50% to spend in 3 months, which I don't think will be achievable. So we'll be going through and revising that as we're coming through, obviously.
So it's probably worth me just providing a bit of an update on what we've done to try and address that. Obviously, it's been a huge capital program and we've been stretched to try and achieve it. We've looked at a number of ways to try and address that underspend. The first, I guess, was to try and look at what projects could be brought forward from next year. And you'll remember at the Infrastructure Committee meeting in March, we looked at a report on the road design work that we could bring forward, and we've started to commence that project. So we've actually brought forward as much design work as we can. That does 2 things. It gives us an opportunity to get as much design done this year, spend capital works funds that wouldn't have been spent otherwise. It also gives us design well in advance of construction next year. One of our problems with our capital program appears to be we're doing design and construction within the same financial year, and we're effectively bottlenecking some of the work, and construction is reliant on waiting for the design to flow through. This gives us an advantage to get ahead of that. So we've got spending early now, and it gives us time to do our construction planning well in advance. The other thing it does is it also gives us the advantage of getting better estimates. So we're going into the estimate phase with the design already in hand, rather than doing our estimates prior to the design. So there's a couple of good things happening about that. The problem is to turn that around will take a couple of financial years. We've done our best to do as much as we can in the remaining months of this financial year, but we can't do it all because of the volume of work. So we're starting to turn that around. The other strategy is looking at what projects can be deferred and time, especially on grant funded projects, whether we can ask for more time. Now, to that end, the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor and myself actually met with the Treasurer and Deputy Premier yesterday during discussions and just raised the issue of just our trying to complete our capital works program. And they were both quite favourable about giving some sort of extension to projects. So that's taken a little bit of the pressure off us, but we've had that conversation. Somewhat fortuitously, after that meeting yesterday, the Executive Director for Transport for New South Wales and the Director for Northern Region New South Wales Transport for New South Wales happened to be travelling through Scone and just rang and said, can we drop in and see you while we're travelling through? So I took them up on the opportunity. I met with them just after midday yesterday, and again explained that we had a number of projects, a lot of them Transport for New South Wales programs, and some of the difficulty we're having in just finalising some of the capital works program. Some of that's been council had control over and we've dropped the ball on. Some of it's been externally controlled with floods and droughts and all sorts of other things. They're quite understanding of that, and they gave me again some assurances that they were comfortable if we made some sort of approach to them that we could reschedule some of that capital works program. So I'm quite comfortable with those 2 discussions yesterday, that we've taken some of the pressure off us for the delivery dates. From a community perspective, though, I still want to see, obviously, those programs delivered as soon as possible, because there's quite a significant backlog of capital program. And as the finance managers pointed out, we're 3/4 of the way through the year with 50% funding. So we're not going to achieve that, but we have made, I guess, some inroads into trying to address that and turn that around.
Right. I just got a couple of questions. When you go through your airport, say, White Park, Campbell's Corner and the Golf Club, what's the feelings throughout the directors and where are we heading with those? I mean, those, it's unfortunate where we are, but those ones there worry me with the finances. The long-term goal, what do we just keep fighting ahead? Like,
No, I think through you to you, Mr. Mayor, again, I think we need to really take a commercial focus on each of those operations. We need to treat them as businesses, or a business within a business, if you like, and each one needs to be generating a return to the community. We can't burden the community with losses. The intent is that those businesses should be returning some sort of financial contribution back to the council so that the community can be benefited through other ways. To that end, I think they're all going to have to be a focus for the next 12 months at least. Try and identify which of those commercial businesses require a little bit more input. We've already identified White Park is a great facility, but probably needs some more investment in order to really leverage the benefits. At the moment, we've got a huge asset down there that's not generating the type of return that we should, but we probably do need to spend some more funds down there. And we've identified both the camping area and the electricity upgrade as the primary projects down there to turn that around. It probably needs some sort of different management structure as well in order to generate the type of events that we want down there. So we've got that already identified internally, and we're starting to work on that with an internal group. The other features, Campbell's Corner, you're aware that we've got a number of projects and tenants moving forward in that space, but the upstairs space still is somewhat vacant and needs to find suitable tenants. I think the golf course at this stage probably needs some expert advice. We discussed that a little bit earlier in the meeting, but I think there's some areas there where we need to either partner or develop something of our own on that site and try to get that, I guess, contain the losses that we're currently experiencing down there. What I have, I guess, identified is that the golf course needs to work hand in hand with some sort of a facility. Having the facility off site just doesn't work. It needs to be on site. So we need to get that working. We'll look at various options, and you rightly identified yesterday, whilst we're setting the general manager's performance objectives, that some of those commercial activities probably need a stronger focus over the next 12 months.
okay. Okay, councillors, back to page 40, I believe. There's a recommendation in front. 4 dot points, going to move her. Councillor Burns, second Councillor Fisher. All in favour? Against? Carried. Over to page 300. Contractors and expense report.
Thank you, Chair. These are just for notation. So just for your information. And probably the main one is the 304, just in regards to the consultants and legals.
Yep. Okay, got any questions on that particular report? If not, got a mover. Councillor Fisher. Second, Councillor Burns. All in favour? Against? Carried. Over to 305, Scone Airport project update. Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Alan Fletcher is away today, so I'm standing in for him at this meeting. I won't be standing in for him in the next one, I take it. Yes. So still got my training wheels on for this week. Schedule, I'll start with, just go through the report there, just briefly touching on some of the more important and key items there. So the schedule is, we've had some more wet weather since, in March, and so that delayed some of the works, the civil works that was being completed at the time. So it looks like on the air side, Darracon, they're aiming to be completed by Friday next week, 23rd. And they're looking like they're on track for that. And the Warbirds, mid-November, I think the 15th of November is where the current extension of time has taken us out to.
Does that include the extra flood works down at the bottom end of the runway? Is that addressed?
No, it doesn't include that work. We're still waiting on a final design for that. I was going to just touch on that a bit later. Thank you. Budget-wise, I'm just reading from the report here that was put together by PWA, and they've quoted it, airside is 95% spend complete, and the Warbirds at 12% spend complete. The contingency at the moment is at 800,000, but there's that drainage works at the southern end that was just referred to. It's possible that may consume about 200,000 or 300,000 of that 800,000. So we're waiting on the design for that to be completed before we can get costing on it, and who's going to do that. If we look at skip through to now the work that's been completed, because some of these other ones will be touched on later. On the air side, all of the major civil works is complete apart from that drain that we've mentioned, and the engine testing facility, that'll be completed next week. They've made good progress on that. Those should be completed by about Tuesday or Wednesday at the latest.
Just an update on that, please. The engine testing, what did you end up doing there? Just a dirt mound?
Yeah, pretty much a pad which is just a little bit bigger than 20 by 20 metres. That's what was specified. So it's a little bit bigger than that, just with the dirt mound of the excess spoil around that, with a gravel track going out to it.
So all concerned happy with?
Yes, I believe so. I haven't personally spoken to the person, but I've been told that he's happy.
That's better than 500,000.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, part of the track at the end of the apron will be sealed, just so the dirt from the rest of it won't make its way onto the hard area. Yeah.
Yes, I believe 20 metres, I think, yes, just to shed the dirt, but the rest of it is gravel. All of the taxiways are now completed, sealed and line marked. Once those yellow lines go on, they look really good. The hydro mulching is completed of all the grassed areas. Walter Pye Avenue is sealed and line marked, and we're aiming on opening it this afternoon. Everything's going on track there. Still, we have to, once Darracon are complete, we have to get the as-built drawings, the ITP, completed ITPs and quality control records. So we'll file those. Critical issues is the development of a permanent solution for that drainage. The fencing tender has to go out for the fences and the gates. And it says, listing here, hand over to new internal management resources with the departure of Joe and Alan. Warbirds, we've reached the 100% design milestone. The pad is completed and ready for they're going to start piling next week. Today they're scheduled to dig some holes for the pole caps and then install the piles next week on Monday. So that's coming along well. And then they'll put in the in-slab services and then do the formwork and steel reinforcing work on the slab itself. So that'll start to come up out of the ground within the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, just might add something to that. If you look at the risk register on page 306, one of the risks we identified was changing to staff. We've downgraded that from red to amber because we're quite confident in the new project manager and the new airport coordinator. So that risk has been mitigated, we feel, and that's just an amber. Probably will go to green, I would imagine.
Thank you.
Just further to that, Joanne was doing a lot of work on the actual internal of the museum and getting that up and running and exhibits and coordinating the internal stuff. Chris, I think, is going to do an admirable job on the nuts and bolts of it. Who's actually going to focus on what?
Yeah, David and Beck Morrison are working on that quite consistently, and I'm pretty happy with the progress that's been made. I've just been looking at logos and branding like yesterday, and we're just getting all that stuff designed. So we need to develop the business plan just in terms of the staffing level, the opening hours, and cleaning rosters, and all that, and ticketing, and all those things.
That's where I'm.
So that's probably the next. I guess
Marketing
6 to 8
launch.
weeks. Yep.
Yeah.
More of a back thing anyway.
Sorry.
But I agree with Councillor Fisher. It's the most important part to make this Warbird Attraction Centre work, because we can't afford to be off the ball with this. Very good.
And we've just doing interviews for a new comms person who is, if we get our preferred applicant, is absolute whiz with graphics and promoting facilities. So I'm really quite excited about that.
Good. For us, I know we might have to have a quick one just to discuss the fees. Is that the what we're heading at? So yeah, there probably will be one.
Yeah, that's what we're working on at the moment. Probably won't be ready for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that it for you, Chris?
That's it for me. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Just add on to that, I thought Al might have been here today. Al's done a magnificent job out there under sometimes difficult situations, and he's handled very well. And yeah, just like congratulate Al and the rest of the staff, and Joe, of course, not here. And I'm sure you'll take over the project, but it has been tough. It's been tough for staff, been tough for councillors. We've had a lot of backlash and hard work on it, but I think it's going to be something we should all be very proud of when we finish. So all the best, Chris, on continuing on.
Thank you very much.
That's good. Over to page 315. Councillor questions. Councillor Campbell's not here. Councillor Fisher, happy? Councillor Burns, happy? Any other extra questions? None this month. Councillor Fisher? I haven't either.
Just in regards to the next meeting about the site visit. So we're talking about going out for a site visit in regards to the vacant land at St Andrews Reserve. So before the next corporate services meeting. So we might have to look at the timing of when we start the next corporate services meeting, possibly.
Yep.
That's all. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, staff. Declare the meeting closed at 10:14.